If you've ever used a popular blockchain during peak hours, you've probably felt that pain. Those super high fees and just how slow everything gets. It's honestly one of the biggest puzzles in the crypto world. So today, we're going to dive into a project called Kadena, which was literally built from the ground up to try and solve that exact problem. So let's just get right to the heart of it. Why does it feel like the most popular networks can just grind to a halt and cost a fortune for a simple transaction? Well, it turns out this isn't some bug. It's a fundamental design challenge that pretty much every single blockchain has to deal with. And there's a name for that challenge, the blockchain trilemma. I want you to think of it like a balancing act. See, a network needs to be secure from attacks, right? It also has to be scalable so it can handle tons of users. And it needs to be decentralized so no single person or group is in control. The big problem has always been that you could really only pick two of those three, which means you're forced to make a really tough sacrifice. And this really frames the whole story. On one side, you've got most blockchains making that difficult choice. They might sacrifice speed for better security, or maybe they give up some decentralization to get more scale. But then, on the other side, you have Kadena, and their entire mission, their whole goal, is to just refuse to make that trade-off and actually achieve all three. Okay, so let's get into the solution that Kadena is proposing. This isn't just about a small improvement here or there. No, this is a totally different way of thinking about how a blockchain can be structured so that it can be fast, cheap, and secure, all at the same time. So who's behind all this? The project was launched back in 2019 by two guys, Stuart Popejoy and Will Martino. And, their background is really the key here. They used to lead the blockchain division over at JP Morgan. That experience gave them this deep understanding of the kind of high-stakes security and performance that big companies need, and that heavily influenced Kadena's design. And of course, the network's native token is KDA. All right, now for the really cool part, the core tech. How in the world does Kadena plan to solve this trilemma? Well, the answer is in this unique architecture they built called Chainweb. And this is their secret weapon, the thing that makes everything else possible. This analogy just explains it perfectly. Think of a traditional blockchain, like Bitcoin, as a single-lane road. Every single car or a transaction has to wait in line behind the one in front of it. Sure, it's secure, but man, it gets congested fast. Kadena's Chainweb is like adding a whole bunch of new lanes to that road, turning it into this massive highway where traffic can just flow freely across multiple chains all at once. So let's break that down real quick. First, Kadena runs a bunch of chains all at the same time, in parallel. Each of those chains is handling its own batch of transactions, kind of like all the different checkout lanes at a grocery store. Then, and this is the most important part, all of these separate chains are securely braided together into one single network. The result? A system that can handle way more volume, which means much higher speeds and way lower fees for you and me. But just solving the speed problem is only one part of the puzzle. Kadena was actually designed with a bunch of other key features that tackle other common headaches in the blockchain world, especially when it comes to security and just making things easier for developers. Let's talk about smart contracts. Kadena actually created its own programming language called Pact. Now, if you've ever heard stories about how complex and buggy the code can be on other platforms, well, Pact was designed to be the exact opposite. It's meant to be super easy for humans to read, which you can imagine dramatically cuts down on the risk of those costly bugs and exploits. And there's more. The network is built so that fees stay low, and just as important, predictable, even when the network gets really busy. It also uses proof of work. That's the same super secure model as Bitcoin, which has been proven to be incredibly tough against attacks. But it does it in a much more energy-efficient way. Plus, it has this hybrid capability, which lets private company chains securely plug into the main public network. So where does the KDA token fit into all this? Well, its job is pretty straightforward, but absolutely vital. It's basically the fuel for the entire network. You use KDA to pay for those nice, low transaction fees, and it's also what's used to reward the miners who are running the computers that keep all those braided chains secure and humming along. Okay, so the technology is definitely impressive, but what does that actually mean in the real world? Let's take a look at the practical uses, and also let's be real about the challenges that Kadena has to overcome to compete in what is a very, very crowded space. The possibilities are pretty broad. For developers, it means you can build decentralized apps, things like NFT marketplaces or DeFi platforms that actually feel fast and affordable to use. For big companies, that hybrid model lets them manage private data on their own chain while still getting the security of a public blockchain. And for all of us, it means being able to use safer smart contracts built with that Pact language. Of course, we've got to have a balanced view here. The advantages are pretty clear. You've got high speed, low costs, and that extra security. But Kadena is still kind of the underdog. It's going up against giants like Ethereum, which has a massive head start in adoption, and a huge, thriving community of developers. Kadena's own ecosystem is definitely growing, but it's still in those early stages.
All right, so if you only remember a few things from all this, let's make it these four. First, Kadena's secret sauce is Chainweb, braiding all those chains together to get that incredible speed. Second, its entire reason for existing is to solve the trilemma. Third, its smart contract language, Pact, is all about safety. And finally, it takes Bitcoin's top-notch security and mixes it with the flexibility and low costs we need for today's apps.
And that really brings us to our final question. We've all seen single-chain blockchains struggle to keep up. We've seen other projects try all sorts of different solutions. Kadena is making a big bet that this idea, braiding chains together, is the elegant solution the crypto space has been waiting for. The only question left is, will it be the one to finally unlock blockchain's full mainstream potential?